I didn't say anything when the HOA president slid the violation packet across the table and smirked, like she'd just handed me an eviction notice. I just opened my folder, laid the original subdivision plat down on top of her paperwork, and pointed to the signature line, the one with my grandfather's name on it. The one recorded in the county courthouse decades before this HOA even existed. Her lawyer leaned forward, went pale, and quietly pushed his chair back without another word. That was the moment I knew. They finally understood. T said T.D. Been finding me for was and T. T there's to regulate. The truth was, no of it was, but let me back up. Because I wasn't looking for a fight when I came here. I wasn't looking for drama, or committees, or I came out to the old cabin because I wanted peace. After my dad passed, the place had been sitting empty for years. My grandfather had built it back in the late 50s. Just a simple 2-bedroom, tucked into the edge of the woods, with a creek running behind it. I grew up fishing that creek and splitting firewood on weekends. So when life finally gave me the chance, I moved back. My plan was modest. Fix up the roof, rebuild the deck, maybe plant a garden, and stay out of people's way. I wasn't here to join bake sales or argue about lawn colors. At first, it was perfect. The mornings smelled like pine and wet soil. I'd wake up, drink coffee on the porch, and listen to the creek running like it had been running since before the subdivision even existed. I patched the roof myself, added a little shed in the back for tools, and stacked firewood the way my grandfather used to. I had neighbors, of course, but we waved politely and kept to ourselves. I didn't want anything more than that. For the first time in years, I actually slept without an alarm clock drilling into me. The first notice came on a Tuesday, bright orange, taped to my garage door like some kind of scarlet letter. According to the HOA, my new shed was an unapproved structure. They demanded I remove it within 30 days or face escalating fines. At first, I laughed. The shed was a prefabricated unit from the hardware store, tucked neatly behind the cabin, out of sight from the road. I thought surely this was a mistake. Maybe a neighbor confused me with someone else. But then the letters kept coming. Violation. Non-compliance. Threats of liens. Threats of legal action. They said add and sort. Architectural committee approval. I didn't even know we had an architectural committee. So, I did what I thought reasonable people did. I emailed. I explained that the cabin was built before the HOA was even chartered. I told them I wasn't subject to their bylaws, that the shed was within county code. I even offered to show them the deed. The response? Silence. Then, 2 weeks later, another notice. This time, claiming my fence line was encroaching on common area. I walked the property myself. The fence hadn't moved an inch since my grandfather's day. That's when I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was sport to them, a test. They thought I was some quiet loner who would fold, pay fines, or beg forgiveness. The HOA president even cornered me one afternoon when I was unloading groceries, saying in that sing-song tone, "You really ought to read the handbook before you get yourself in deeper trouble." It wasn't even subtle. It was a threat, wrapped in a smile. For a while, I tried to play along. I attended a board meeting, brought my papers, tried to explain calmly. They dismissed me with a wave, cut me off. It told me everyone has to follow the rules. No acknowledgement. No discussion, just smug certainty. That night, I stopped writing emails. I stopped asking for meetings. Instead, I started pulling records. I went down to the county clerk's office, dug through plat maps, subdivision filings, and easement records going back 50 years. What I found was almost funny. When my grandfather sold parcels of his land to developers back in the 70s, he never sold the tract my cabin sat on. He kept the entire subdivision tract, deeded in his name, with explicit language carving it out from any future homeowners association. When he deeded the tract, passed to my father. When my father died, it passed to me, on paper. I didn't just own my cabin. I owned the subdivision's original tract of land under their manicured entrances, their so-called common areas, even the streets. That changed everything. Suddenly, the harassment wasn't just annoying. It was reckless. They were fining me for a shed sitting on property they had no jurisdiction over. They were threatening liens against land they didn't control, and every single letter, every single notice, was another piece of evidence. So I documented everything. I photographed the taped violations, saved the letters, recorded the conversations. At night, while they were sleeping comfortably behind their covenants and committees, I was cataloging every overstep. Of course, it wasn't easy. Neighbors grew distant when they realized I wasn't bending. Some stopped waving. A few whispered about me at the mailbox. My partner asked if it was worth the stress, if maybe I should just take the shed down and avoid the fight. I considered it, but then I thought of my grandfather signing those original deeds with a steady hand, keeping this cabin and its tract free. He hadn't built this place for me, to let someone as petty bureaucracy strip it down. So, by the time I sat at that board meeting again, I wasn't nervous. I was prepared. When the president started rattling off violations, I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just laid down the plat map, the deed, the recorded tract exemption, and a certified letter from the county confirming what I already knew. Their lawyer skimmed it, went pale, and leaned back in his chair. The room went quiet. The president tried to bluster, but she had nothing. The HOA had been operating as if my land and the very ground beneath their subdivision was theirs to govern. It wasn't. Legally, it never had been. The fallout was immediate. Within a month, the president resigned. The board stopped sending notices altogether. Their logère, I later learned, advised them that pushing further could expose them to lawsuits for harassment and misrepresentation. Some neighbors avoided me, others came quietly to apologize. A few even thanked me for standing up, because they'd been bullied too but never had the means to push back. Now, the cabin is quiet again. The shed stands right where I built it, filled with tools and firewood. No more orange. No more smug smiles at the grocery store. When I drive through the subdivision, some people wave, and others look away. Either way, it's silent, and that's all I ever wanted: quiet. The irony is that in trying to strip me of control, the HOA reminded everyone whose name was really on the land, and I didn't need to raise my voice once.